Hello. So, I want to talk about an amazing experience that I had recently with someone that I couldn't communicate with um, regarding something that I guess you could call forgiveness. Let's see, I'm going to prop this up one more level. Um, so, many of us have people that we need reconciliation with that for whatever reason we can't communicate with them, whether they're, hi Jeannie, how are you, whether they have passed away, or you're not communicating, or they've just fallen out of your life. But whatever the case, it really is possible to achieve a kind of peace. And I know that with inner child workshops there is the principle of, thank you for liking it. There is the principle of having someone stand in so that you can have a conversation with them about, you know, past events, and you get to say what you need to say. And it's actually extremely powerful. But what I'm talking about is a psychic connection with somebody, and we're all capable of it. And it's something that I would be happy to facilitate. In fact, I have facilitated this many times for people where they need to find peace with someone. And you can communicate with the person. Sorry. Um, so, what happened is when I kind of had figured out what had happened and communication had ceased with this person, I pretty much knew what had happened. And it was an easier situation because I felt nothing but love for this person. Um, I had withheld some information that I knew would be very, very distressing to her. And um, so I didn't exactly feel bad about that because I was guided by the spirit to not reveal this for a certain period of time. And then I knew eventually she would figure it out. And that's when it just stopped. And I immediately knew that it was the timing of the spirit. So always be aware of the fact that it's like two states bordering each other. You know, the border of one makes up the border of the other. Your experience and how you react and what's going on for you, the other person is having their perfect experience too. Even if there's been an angry outburst or words that you regret, you've given them something to work with, something that they probably agreed to. So, anyway, so what happened is I'm like, I'm just going to talk to her psychically because we actually have this very powerful psychic connection. And I expressed everything I needed to express. And here's the key: listening. And if you have a lot of regret, it's difficult to get past all of that emotional baggage. So, doing the self forgiveness piece first is really, really essential. And this was an easier situation, like I said, because I wasn't holding a lot of anger towards myself for what had happened. None at all, actually. I just kind of understood the lay of the land. And that when this would happen, I knew it would be the perfect timing. So, and maybe for her to, maybe our chapter had come to an end and she is going to rely on her own intuition more. I don't know. But anyway, I just sent her all of this love and all of these blessings and just profound gratitude for everything that she had given me and all the wonderful words of blessing. And that's something that we forget too when there's been a difference or a breaking of a relationship. Sometimes we forget the 999% of positive that was there. And I called all of that to mind and just kind of gave it to her like this big gift. And then I listened. And what I heard back was very sweet. And granted, it may have been from her higher self because we all have to process through the emotions and all of that. But I didn't get any big alarming negative message, but if you've reached a place of self-forgiveness, that is a sacred space of reconciliation where they might, well, and I guarantee they will feel shifted if you go into a deep listening mode and really try to just bear witness. I mean, when you need to share your feelings about something, what's your number one urgent need is just to be heard. And so if you just let them have their feelings and their emotions and their experience, which is also part of the sacred hero's journey, and you were given that sacred role in their life, you just allow them to express that. And anyway, the end of the story is that I reached a tremendous sense of peace about it. The spirit has been nudging me to send her a text and just kind of acknowledge what happened and to just wish her well. And I've not had the guts to do that. And I don't know if I will. I hope that I do. I guess I'm scared, you know. I'm scared that I'm going to get this negative response, or I don't know, maybe I've been blocked, but anyway, yeah, this has happened 2 times. The other situation is much more difficult, and as I have been kind of rolling through it, and it just takes time, you know. It, like, every morning it would present itself in a slightly different way, and one morning I had this response like, oh my God, look at this that we enjoyed together, and remember how we laughed, and remember this and this and this and this. And I just had this huge collection of, like, what an incredibly wonderful friendship. And if she was willing to just throw that away instead of talking to me, um, I don't feel like I have to bear any blame for that. So anyway, um, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about is an upcoming class that I'm going to do on this book. It's Not Your Money by Tosha Silver. She is a wonderful writer, and it's a book about, it's not just manifesting. It's more about your divine and sacred relationship to money, and how to bring God into that, and how to really move yourself gently into a place of trust and surrender. And there are a couple of prayers that I've actually recorded on my phone, and I listen to them regularly. And it's set up as an 8-week course. And a friend of mine who might be watching this, we're definitely going to do it together. And I'm just going to do donation only. And just count on the fact that this is going to shift you. It began to shift me immediately when I began to say the prayer on a regular basis. I just began to feel a bunch of stuff in there loosen up that had been really hard and fixed. We have a lot of past life baggage, present life baggage, conditioning, a lot of programs running about money and how it's connected to self-worth and fear. And this book, has just been so timely in my life. And so when I get back from Portland next week, I'm going to set up a time to just get together on Zoom. And I would prefer that you commit to all 8 weeks of the program and get the book if you can. But if you can only participate by a drop-in, that's okay too, because I'm sure the universe has that all figured out. So that's all I had to say for today. So peace be with you. Hey, let's do a quick card read for today. I have scheduled for Tuesday on my other channel at 1:30 Mountain Time. Oh, wow, Jeannie, I am so glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, sometimes we forget, especially those of us who are psychic and communicate, intuitively, that we can do this in real time with people in our lives, even if it's someone that you live with. Sometimes you can just go and have a heart-to-heart with them, say everything you need to say, and then be receptive, and it definitely shifts the interaction later on. So I scheduled a live on Tuesday for the purpose of really doing more of a deep dive into the new year. We did just a really short one, and this four of spades was very prominent, wasn't it, in both last year and this year. So we're going to focus on this coming year, which I feel is just going to be great. It just feels fundamentally different. And I also feel very deeply that the incredible level of difficulty that a lot of us went through this past year was a let's get the boots on the ground, let's get some traction, let's finally get down to the core of some particular issues that have just been nagging at us this whole lifetime, and of course, past lives. And there was just it was like boot camp, and it was a very fundamental shift. And I went to the Dances of Universal Peace last night for the first time in years, and was with the dance teacher who has made such a massive impact on my life. And I saw how much I had shifted. It was just absolutely incredible. I got to witness my growth. If you want to feel how much you have grown, I have a recommendation. It may surprise you. If there is a movie that you watched when you were little and you loved it so much that you watched it periodically, maybe it was A Christmas Story, maybe it was, for me, it was Sound of Music. Whatever that movie is, especially if it's more, heart centered, Christmas Story isn't necessarily going to get you there, but it might. Watch it again. And you're the reason Sound of Music works so well for me is that it pulls on so many different strings in life. There's so many different angles that are examined throughout that movie, and you get to relate to it. You get to feel yourself relating to all these different strings in a profound way. And yeah, and it was, I saw members of my community that I hadn't seen in years, and it's like we just got back into that slot. It's deep Sufi dancing, and it's deeply, excuse me, meditative. Beautiful place. It's absolutely ideal for that kind of deep inner witnessing. But if you don't have access to that, yeah. So anyway, let's draw some cards just for today. Maybe just for Jeannie and me, but for anyone else that might watch. Forgiveness. The name of my video. So today maybe is about loosening up, releasing, softening. Softening. For me, the most important part of forgiveness is the softening toward the self for the hurt, for the anger, for all of the stuff that the offense caused. Because if we're really deeply hurt, we immediately form a shell around it, don't we? A hard shell to protect ourselves. And it turns into anger and resentment and revenge or, whatever. But down at the core, there is a little child that's afraid, that's hurt, that's sad, it's really wounded, it's questioning their self-worth. And when you can soften into that place, you have to go there first. If you knew how similar my story is in the situation I've been going through, I mean, you're spot on as usual. Wow, that's really cool. I have another friend who's also just an open book, who had a very similar situation too. I could not believe how similar. I was like, this is a fairly unique thing to happen. But anyway, yeah, and I noticed too, when people talk about these timeline splits, they're like, you'll notice people falling out of your life. And I'm like, I've never seen that. And they're like, yeah, those are NPCs. And I'm like, no, they're not NPCs. But as frequencies shift and change and our direction changes, sometimes people will fall out of your life. And sometimes it's just a total mystery. There's a Rumi poem about how God moves the bird cages around. And just the way he says that, it's like, move that one here, move this one there. It's like, we don't know what that, I think that's my phone ringing. Isn't that funny? I'm like, oh, yeah. Sorry, I have to text my friend because we're gonna go see a movie today. Sorry. Doing a live period. I'll call you back when I'm finished. Thanks. I was the kicker outer, thought I had to put up some boundaries, but it doesn't make it any easier. Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, there's so much emotion around all of that because you do what you need to do and then you feel bad about it. It's inevitable. If somebody else is being hurt, you're going to feel bad about it. And so have some compassion on yourself for how hard that was, for how maybe you punished yourself a bit, how you played stories over in your mind to justify it, how, to outweigh the guilt or whatever it may be. It just gets so sticky and thorny and complicated in there. And just get back to that inner child that's just sad, hurt, scared, lost. I have to forgive myself for the straightforwardness and also know that it was so necessary so that nothing gets misconstrued. Yeah, I was thinking exactly that, is that the straightforward, you had to be direct, you had to be really clear. And you didn't want that to hurt their feelings, but it did. There's no way you can go through something like that without pain, and the pain is utterly instrumental. I remember it was November 18th of about 5 years ago, and there was a particular, moon thing going on, and it was that day that I was like, "This ends now," and I broke up with Stuart, and he fortunately had a job a couple hours away in the mountains, which there was a location. A friend owned this little apartment up there, and he got to stay there for like a month or two. And we thought for sure it was the end. And the pain and everything that he went through, this pressure cooker, he was able to take responsibility for himself. And it took a long time. And after a while, he got past his anger toward me for that event and got to take some personal responsibility. And he grew up and he became the man that I fell in love with. And to both our utter shock and amazement, we got back together and we are more. I didn't know I was still in love with him, but we had to go through that to rediscover everything. It had to be fractured, and it was the pain that caused the opening. And I grew so much too. I got 2 books on codependence, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm so codependent. Okay, so what else tis today about? Softening around forgiveness, value your partnerships. Yeah, that's a great ending to that story and continuing. And I appreciate them and don't take it for granted every single day. So, the Two of Diamonds, what do you get about this, Jeannie? I think of it as a loyalty to your own values. My core, the core esoteric meaning of it for me, well, no, the psycho-spiritual meaning of it is declare your values to yourself again. What is important to you? What matters most to you? And how are you going to live in alignment with that? How are you going to be loyal to yourself? So I think that's a really big piece because it's like, soften around the pain that it caused and then revisit, why did you do that? Tell yourself your own story. These are my core values. This is why I did it. And it does sit in vertical Saturn in the pure spread, or no, in the mundane spread, but it also sits in the Saturn line in the pure spread. No, sorry, Jupiter, Neptune. So maybe it's kind of undoing illusions that we've had. I know a lot of Two of Diamonds that are they have a lot of illusions about a lot of things, and then having to be in this vertical Saturn here and Mars, they've got to work through those illusions. So maybe it's a little bit about that coming to terms. I would put the softer spin on it, that it's becoming really conscious of your own value system and aligning with your story and your reasoning and your experience, and maybe you didn't do it perfectly, but you did it how you had to do it. You did it the best you could at this point in your life. 10 of Hearts. Family. This is the big everybody community. What is this telling us? What I'm getting is, okay, I'm going to talk about the takeaway from my experience last night in rejoining community. I even had this dream. I mean, this event was so powerful that it sent ripples out into my future, and I had this dream that I was reconnecting with old community, and I started dancing with these people early 2000s, so over 20 years ago. And rejoining with this group of people, well, the dream was like, oh, this happy reunion. And then I get up and my friend sends me a text about, hey, there's a dance in Loveland tonight with Guyan leading. And I'm like, I'm there. Oh my God, this is amazing. And there were about 5 to 7 people that I had danced with in the past. And it was just a deep, happy reunion. And after this embrace by community, my capacity for self love was just so much bigger because, we get locked in. This past year was a real year of isolation for me. And we get locked into this, that's the downside of like, you have to go in your cave and do your work and you forget about everybody else, and everybody else is doing their work. And when we witness other people in their struggles, we have so much compassion that pours out of us. And we have to learn how to generate that for ourselves, but it's so much easier. I really do think that this is fundamental to the spiritual path, and that's why Buddhism includes the Buddha, the Sangha, and the Dharma. The Dharma is your sacred work, which for me, I've discovered in the last couple of days is writing. I am now editing my book, Little Things, which I started about 8 years ago. Like, when I do it, I cry because I'm like, oh, I love this so much. And then the Buddha is the teaching, the ideal, that for which we are reaching within ourselves. We are also the Buddha, and the Sangha is the community. And I think we so often forget how important that is. So I think this is a year of community. I don't know what the numerology is on this year yet. Let's see, 2026. So it's a 1 year. Well, whatever. I know that community is just, it's going to rebirth itself in my life. And I am bringing a whole new person into that community. So, anyway, find softening, come back to your values and your story, and go to your Sangha for healing. So, yes, my love and blessings to you, Jeannie, and to everybody else. Thank you so much for watching, and think about joining my class um, close to the end of this month. Have a great day. You are so welcome. Thank you. Okay, bye.